What I want to do here is introduce you to the general workflow of Stata that we're going to follow for the remainder of this course. So every week is going to look more or less similar. We're going to do things in sequence at the start of every class, and I'm going to show you now what that sequence is. The first thing you'll need to do every week, and you can do this in advance of the class if there is a new syntax file, is to go to this datasets, do files and syntax files folder. And here you'll see that there are currently two datasets. There's wave 9 of the European Social Survey and the 2019 wave of the EU Silk. Whenever you see a file with the extension .dta, these are Stata format datasets. You can click on these, you can right click Save Target, or you can click on them to download, and you'll see they'll snap here automatically to your downloads folder. What I suggest you do is that you set up a permanent folder either on your network drive for campus or on a personal drive, and save the datasets in one location and save the do files in the same location. Every week as new do files are added, simply save these to the same location again. Now we have down here the do file for this coming week, which is week 2. You see, you're given the title week 2 SO617 and the relevant year. So when you see the file extension .do, we're dealing with do files. And these are text files into which we can write sets of Stata commands. And I'll show you why we do that in a moment. So first of all, I'm going to start up Stata in the sequence that you will see it. In class, my viewer might look a little bit different, but this is the basic method that I showed you in the previous video as well. So first we sign into Apps Anywhere. And once your session has hopefully verified, you can scroll down to the bottom. If you're doing this for the first time, it'll prompt you to install Cloud Paging Player. And then we go down to Stata and click Launch. So it might take a little while working in the background, but eventually it should verify and pop up. And what you want to do is just disable automatic updates for the moment, and then maximize your window. Now at this point you should have already saved in an accessible folder the datasets that were shown in the previous folder, and you should have also saved the do file for this week as well. Now in your window you'll see here there's a couple of different areas. We've got the review window, the variables window, and the properties window. You also have a set of buttons up here, and what I'm going to ask you to do is to click on this one here, which is new do file editor. And you see that everything we do in Stata by point and click, we can also replicate by command. So if I was to type do edit in the command line here as well, it would also perform the same action as clicking on this. So I'm opening up a blank do file editor. Now there are other ways to do this that are a little bit quicker. As we get further into this, we can start using slightly more advanced methods to get ourselves started up and loading datasets. But we're going to work through this manually for now. So what I want you to do is to click Open, and then navigate to the folder where you've saved the do file for this week, and then click on the do file. So you can double click, or you can click on it and then click Open. And what you will see then is a file open in front of you with some text. And you now will have two windows running in Stata. You will have the do file editor and you'll have the Stata console. So how this works every week is that what we're going to do is we're going to write the instructions and write the things that we want Stata to do in this window. Send those commands to the Stata console over here where it will perform the analysis that we ask of it. And in Stata we do this through commands. And the nice thing about using Stata is that the command syntax, the grammar of Stata, is quite intuitive, and you'll see it's quite similar, at least for the basic commands. The grammar structure is quite similar across different command sets. Whenever you see anything prefixed by a star, by an asterisk, these are just text, these are annotations in the file where I write notes to you or explain things. The ones that appear in slightly bolder and blue and black here are commands that can be executed. So you can read this in your own time, but basically what we're going to do in class is we're going to do the practical part of this class by executing commands from the do file. So how this works is you can either click here, if I want to run this command, you can click here on line 13 and you'll see it'll highlight, or you can drag your mouse across the entirety of the command. And if you want to run that command, you can go up here and click execute selection, or the keyboard shortcut is Control D. And when you do that, what we've done is we've asked WebUse is a command that allows us to open one of Stata's web-based teaching datasets. It's a dataset on life expectancy. And you can see here in the variables window, a couple of things have popped up. Now we've got data, we've got active data running in the console. So we have variables titled region, country, pop growth, LEXP, GNP, and you can see the longer labels over here. The labels explain a little bit more about what the variable is, and should give you kind of a general description of the variable content and usually what the measure is, if it's a percentage, a number, a score, whatever. If we want to look at the data in grid format, we can run the edit command, and we see here that the data that we have loaded now it's in a rectangular grid. Regions are coded over here in the first row under region. We've got the country names and we've got population growth. So here we have Albania, which has a score of population growth, so it's 1.2%. And if we look here, the life expectancy at birth in Albania is 72, 78 in Belgium, and so on. We also have indexes for GNP growth and an index of safe water. Now, if we close this down, you'll see that in the remainder of this lesson, which we'll work through in the class, we're going to run through these commands and talk about some of the output. A couple of things you got to keep in mind are sometimes you'll come across quite long commands, and when commands get really, really long, you'll see here that they're broken up using this little punctuation here. Wherever you see that, you just want to make sure that you run the command in its entirety by dragging across both lines or multiple lines, as the case may be. So you can either drag your mouse across that, or you can drag the mouse down here in the margins across the two. And it's the same as before. You can either click execute or click Control D to do that. This command is a graph command, so it's just going to draw us a scatter plot with a line fit to show the relationship between life expectancy and GNP growth. And again, when it's running in this mode on apps anywhere, sometimes it takes a while. If you look down here, you'll see the little wheel turning if it's actually doing something. And when it's ready, it gives us a graph that shows us the relationship between life expectancy and economic growth. So once you're finished with that, you can close it down, and you can close down your file as well. Again, we'll be adding more commands to this that allow us to save our data, export our data. As we go through this, we'll be making changes to some of the data sets that we use. We'll be able to switch between data sets within the do file. The most important thing about using do files in this way, again, I could do any of this down here. I could type these commands into the command line to make it do whatever I want it to do. But the point is that we have a record that shows exactly what we did and keeps track of the workflow. This is really important for project work, that we remember that we have a log of what we did, because quite quickly these things, projects can become very, very complex. Even if you're just repeating very simple things over and over, you can lose track of what you've done even 10-15 minutes before very quick. So it's good practice to get used to running projects in this format using code, and the native format for Stata for storing that is in do file format. So we'll work through this in class in week 2. And this is the basic workflow that we'll be using for the remainder of the course. So it's good that you can familiarize yourself with it early on.